Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about 5 key fears that you may be having before you transition into contracting or independent consulting. Now, potentially you've said to yourself, am I good enough? Am I the right person? Do I have the skills? What if I quit and I don't like what I'm doing and I'm not able to find another contract? Or what if I'm in a situation where I don't have enough experience? Or what if no one hires me? These are all valid questions, and it's good that you exercise these things because questions means answers. I was always taught as a program manager and a project manager, mainly a program manager, that if you have any risks or issues, you need mitigations. Mitigations being ways to prevent those things from happening or stop those things from happening. And so if these questions sound familiar to you, then hopefully this video is going to give you the answers that you need or some solace in helping you resolve some of these things. So, look, the thing is, you can only start where you can start. So, the first thing I want to get into is the fact that you may be saying to yourself, I'm not an expert. Now, what is expertise? An expert is somebody who knows stuff, okay? And actually, they may be validated as somebody who knows stuff. Now, of course, that is only important relative to the person who is seeking your expertise. So this comes down to having a sense of imposter syndrome. And we need to be the expert before we ever consult. We think we need to be the expert before we ever consult, sorry. And so what I mean by that is, that's not necessarily true. But if you're feeling imposter syndrome, you have to ask yourself, is there a competence gap or is there a skill gap somewhere? Why do you feel like you don't have the right skills? So if it's a competency or skill gap, then let's break this down. What specific skills do you need to succeed? What skills do you need? Do you even know? Because if you don't even know, you don't know who you're targeting. If you don't know who you're targeting, then there is a problem there, isn't there? And so you have to think to yourself, are you just making this stuff up, or do you know exactly what skills you're missing? And if so, is there a way for you to cover yourself? Do you actually need those skills? Have you had an end client or a hiring manager or a recruiter or another consultant or contractor tell you that you need those things? And if so, why? The other thing I was going to say is, if you do have the skills, is it a question of not being able to better articulate the value that you provide? Is that really the issue? Because if you don't know how to do that, then that needs to be the first thing that you focus on. Sometimes we create these issues, but sometimes we identify them, but we don't act on them fast enough. And so you need to ask yourself, what do people already ask you for help with? That's your expertise. That's the question you need to ask yourself. Because if you ask yourself that question, then you're in a position to answer it, and then that will help you understand how you can better articulate what value you provide to different hiring managers, end clients, economic buyers, consultants who may need you as a subcontractor, or recruiters as an example. So you have to remember this. Your end client wants a specific result. That's what they want. So you have to give them the confidence that you can provide that result. And the secret weapon here is that you're in a position where you've already done this stuff. I always say this to people. Don't try to do something that you've never done before. And if you have, go in deep in it, being insanely inquisitive or practicing it or whatever it may be before you get into that space is the most important thing you can do. You start off with people who want your services, and you do it for free or for a very low rate. If you're more of a conservative consultant or contractor, again, it's different. So maybe you don't go for like crazy contracts or whatever it may be. Maybe you do some pro bono work. Maybe you brush up on your skills. Maybe you have a period of time where you understand specifically how to position yourself, how to articulate before you start jumping in. So stop creating this anxiety for yourself. Start that stuff first. Well, of course, number one's not enough, i.e. I'm not expert enough. Because number two, it's more centered on, what if I don't get any clients? That's a paralyzing thought. What if no one hires me? This job market is crazy right now. Okay, let's tackle this. Well, we know that the job market feels a bit crazy at the moment. And we know that productivity has been low in the UK and everything else. But have you seen the rates at which different government departments, private sectors, and all those different organizations have been recruiting consultants and contractors? It's been increasing. There's been an ever changing need, or increasing need, should I say. So if it feels hard, but there is more spend, what's happening? Maybe there are things that you don't know, areas that you're not tapping into, where people are not noticing you potentially for contract opportunities or deals. And for me, it's very simple. It's not about AI and this tool and blah, 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 all of that stuff. For me, it's two things. It's very simple, two things. Number one, it's optimizing your profile. I'm not talking about LinkedIn necessarily, although having an up-to-date LinkedIn is crucial. Your profile being whatever job boards you're on, optimizing that profile, the right name, the right skills, the right descriptions, the right CV, all it, like, is it optimized fully? And number two, optimizing your CV or portfolio, whatever it is that you use. Reverse engineer it using first principles. What do you need to tackle first? What's the first thing they see? Okay, they see your structure and format. Do I have the right sort of structure and format? Yes, I do. Is it ATS friendly? Yes, it's ATS friendly. Okay, cool. What's the next thing they see? Profile. Okay, how does the profile read? From left to right, does it make sense? Am I saying what my professionalism? Am I talking about 2 or 3 key skills that they may be looking for? Have I given some examples of stuff that I got myself involved in? And finally, am I talking about what I'm specifically looking for? Okay, what's the next stage? Be logical about it. And if you've done that already, then read it. Does this read well? If I was somebody who was interviewing somebody else, does this read well? It's painful. As a society that is heavily relying on tech and AI these days and automations, we can't be bothered sometimes to just do the work to actually sit down and read it and being in a space that a person may be in. Are you just kind of like scattergunning loads of different things, or are you targeting stuff? So that's the first arena. That just has to be done. And this is where the articulation comes into play. The second part is about networks and people and talking to the right persons. So how do you speak to people who have the opportunities? There are a number of different ways. The first way, okay, is talking to people within your circle. Tell your friends and family members that you're looking for contract work. You're looking for consulting work. And make sure they understand what it is that you do. Invaluable. I remember I sat down with my friend Chima, and we've been boys for years. And once I sat down with him and explained to him exactly what I did, he was sending stuff my way. He knew exactly what to look for because I spoke to him about it in layman's terms. So you have to be really good at doing that. This is why you need to know what you do and talk about it well so that anyone can understand. So friends and family is key. Another sort of sub thing to talk about is, yes, you can go to events and all that kind of stuff there, but they need to be hyper targeted. There are different events you can go to. So certain recruitment agencies host events each year and they invite consultants and contractors to come. Those are great sort of like events to go to. They don't always, create some sort of ROI, but it's a great opportunity to network with other contractors and consultants, but also economic buyers, hiring managers, and the agents themselves. So look out for those different sort of events. The third thing I'd say is you can reach out to people on LinkedIn. That's another way to do it, okay? And try to form a really good relationship with these individuals. But let's say, for example, I'm going to use me as an example. I'm a program manager, primarily working within the public sector space. And if I'm being more niche, within healthcare and even more niche than that, the NHS. So I'm going to be looking for recruiters that have that in their title or in their headline. That's what I'm going to be using the search tool to find those types of people. If I'm sort of like looking for certain roles on LinkedIn, and I don't really use LinkedIn that much because it hasn't given me the best ROI in terms of roles, I'm going to look for the recruiter's name and see if I can contact them directly first. You know, there's a neat trick where you can sort of like sort things based on what's been released in the last 24 hours or even the last couple of minutes. You can contact them straight away once it's been launched out. Before you apply, maybe there's a more official route to apply for stuff. Have a conversation. Be ready to have those conversations with individuals. So rather than laboring the point, what I'm trying to say is those three things are an amazing way to get started. Probably you're doing this stuff already. But with what level of energy? It's about the energy that you bring to it. I know it's tiring and it's hard, but it's the energy that you bring to it. But if we come back to the first original way, optimizing your profile, that is how I was able to even connect with any of these recruiters. I optimized my profile on the different job boards, and that's when I got the calls. That's when I got the emails and all that kind of stuff there. You can track this stuff on a table and all that kind of stuff there if you really want to. So hopefully that's given you sort of like some ideas. But before I continue, if you're looking to see if you are consultant ready, contractor ready, I've got a consultant readiness assessment that you can take. It's in its early stages. It's in its beta version. So check it out. Check out the results and see if you agree with the results or not. And it'll give you a deeper understanding as to whether you're ready or not. But anyway, let's get on to the next one. Sometimes it's not even just about the clients that you get or you getting hired and all that kind of stuff there. Another thing that you may be thinking to yourself is you won't be able to replace your current salary. Money fears are real. They're very, very real. You know, I've had 2 instances in the last, I want to say 4 years, where I haven't been working. I've been out of contract. So the first time I want to say was in 2022. I made the decision to leave. I want to say it's 21 or 22, one of those. And I left because I just couldn't be bothered with the end client anymore. It was getting too heavy, toxic. I needed a break. I said, look, I'm going to be leaving the next day. So sayonara. It's that simple. And I had 4 months off by choice. And by God's grace, and obviously based on understanding the market as well, I was able to secure something a month after that 4 months off. This was in January. Of course, you have to recognize there are cycles to this. January to April are your best months, and then it's kind of intermittent, after the summer holidays and all of that kind of stuff there leading up to Christmas. And so that was the first time. The second time was when the general election happened. So the general election happened. It meant that my contract couldn't get renewed because you just couldn't do that. And so I was out of contract for at least 5 months. That was different because that wasn't a decision that I made. So how was I making my money? Well, I had savings. I had the support of my wife. I also had some income coming through coaching and all that kind of stuff there, but it didn't replace my salary. So what did I do? I focused on working on my profile. This is where this path thing came from. I focused on working on my profile so that when Keir Starmer was elected, I literally had calls the following Monday. Literally, I think there was 7 calls that week. 7 calls. I was hot off the press. 3 weeks later, I secured something. Was it 3 weeks later? Or a couple of months later, whatever it may be, I secured something. I say this to say, there is always going to be work if you are ready for it. If you are ready for it, you have to be proactive. And so if this is a fear, it's a good fear to have because it means you want to do well. You know, if, say, for example, you're working the same hours, you're likely going to make more money, If we're doing like for like, you're in the same sort of like using the same title as a consultant or contractor, but you're working independently as opposed to for someone else, you're going to make more money. It really comes down to your sick days, days that you take off, bank holidays, all of that kind of stuff there. Of course, you can decide to work if you're outside of IR35 as a consultant. If you're inside, slightly different. But you'll make more money. And if you're in a market that makes sense, or you know how to understand the market, or if you have people you can lean into, like a network, it will work for you. So you have to think to yourself, you don't have to replace your salary overnight. You just need to prove that it's possible, and the momentum starts to build from there. I'll never forget, good friend of mine, Lily. So we're both consultants, and essentially, when I was working with her, we just used to be like, I just like, is this real? I feel like our luck's gonna run out. And it never did. Yes, we've had some dry spells, okay? But the point being made is we're able to find our way towards it again. So it comes down to how badly you want it. Another fear that you may have is, what if I fail? What if I fail? So it's not just about money. It's just about who you are as a person. Like, what will people think of you? Some kind of working individual who's like, what do you do? Yeah, when people are confused about what I do. Of course, some of you watching this aren't confused. You're very clear. But some people are just confused. Like, how is he able to do this and that and all this kind of stuff there? But that's beside the point. What if I fail? When it comes to consulting, it is about identity, because you need to answer the question, who do I want to become? And if you want to become a consultant, if that's part of your identity, then you need to do what consultants do. Now, of course, you can be very professional and slick with it and all that kind of stuff there. That's a given. But there needs to be identity with the type of consultant that you're looking to be. What is failure to you? What is failure to you? Is it not making money? Is it not getting hired? Is it doing something wrong or bad for the client? Answer those. Like, how do you mitigate against those? How do you ensure that doesn't happen? Well, one way you can do that is not be a consultant or not be a contractor. So that's a guaranteed way to make sure you don't fail within that space. But in some ways, that is failure because you've decided not to do it. The alternative is to think to yourself, what if you succeed? What does success look like for you? Isn't that more attractive? Because at least with failure, there are lessons you can learn. With success, there's a feeling that you get. Of course, lessons you can learn along the way. But you have to think to yourself, most people don't fail. What are you failing at? They need help. You can provide it. You know you can. You just need to put yourself out there. So try to reframe. I've got my notes here. Reframe failure as feedback. And every no teaches you something. And every setback is a data point for your next pivot. That's how you have to see it. You don't want to do in Ghana. There's something. There's a saying that says "akesesem." It's like a big shot. You don't want to be like overinflated in terms of your ego at the beginning. Humble yourself. Humility is your friend in this game. I'm telling you. I am grateful to be in this position, and I know it could be taken away from me whenever, in many different ways. So I'm humble about it. I have to be. Like, not everyone is in a position where they're even working or earning. So of course, be humble with it. And so if you have a certain level of humility, then you're less likely going to do silly things and overinflate yourself and put yourself in a position where, yeah, you just could be making silly mistakes because you're blinded by ego. So hopefully you guys are still with me and you're still holding on. I want to get into the fifth fear that you may have. And that is, I'll lose my identity without a job title. How many times have people asked you, oh, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a business analyst. I work for Company & Co. But this time people want to ask you, what do you do? And you say, I'm a consultant. Oh, okay. What type of consultant? Oh, Well, yeah, what do you say? Because you've been, let's say, for example, let's say, for example, you've been head of a certain industry or department, should I say, or senior manager for this, and you've been within this space for a long time. But you're not going to have that anymore. You're a consultant. You're now going to be in this weird space where you've got permanent members of staff that you're helping to support, based on the contract that you're doing, who may rate you or don't rate you, who may look at you a certain way and expect you're making crazy amounts of money, knowing that you had all these problems beforehand and you got problems getting to this contract, but because you're a professional, you're keeping your cool. You'll have a situation where now, because you're a consultant, you're banded as this evil person because you're working for yourself as a one man or one woman show who doesn't get benefits, who doesn't get the right level of respect, who still needs to understand finances extremely well to survive. And this is not a woe is me or boo-hoo or whatever it may be. It's all about context. Who are you telling yourself you are? Those things don't matter unless you allow them to matter. Because consulting unlocks your identity in many ways. You have to push yourself differently relative to, working a permanent 9 to 5. Yes, in essence, it may be similar in terms of what you're doing in some cases. However, you can get fired very quickly. You can decide to leave very quickly. You could get sick. You have to find your own work. You have to develop your own benefits. You have to understand your money. You have to know tax well. You need to hire people for certain things like an account. There's all of this stuff to think about. And so it's like, can you handle it? Can you handle it? Are you going to lose yourself in all this stuff? Or are you going to rise above it and decide, actually, I can see myself being this person and therefore I am that person. So hopefully that gives you some strength in terms of how you position your identity. So yes, it's fair to have certain fears, okay? Very rational. But all of them are beatable. What did I say at the beginning? You may have a risk or issue, but what are your mitigations? So this video has given you a whole list of fears, and let me go through them very quickly. You've got number 1, I'm not expert enough. Rubbish. You probably are. Number 2, what if I don't get any clients? Well, if there are other people in the role that you're looking to do and they've got clients, then you can too. Look at the market, analyze it, and see how you can tap into different networks and or job boards to get the opportunities, okay? Number 3, I won't be able to replace my salary. Well, see how much you actually get paid. What is a typical day rate? Look at the ranges. Work it out what that looks like pro rata and then times it by 75% to see what that potentially may look like over the year, taking into consideration sick leave, holidays, all of that kind of stuff there. The next thing is, what if I fail? Fail at what? What are you failing at specifically? What does success look like for you? And if you are failing, at least those are lessons into the new contract, so to speak. And number 5, I'll lose my identity without a job title. You were never defined by a job title. It's just the way people have communicated with each other. Therefore, you are now in a position where you can create what your title looks like, aligned to the contracts that you do. Really key. So bear all of this stuff in mind, okay? Remember, your skills are valid. The world doesn't necessarily need just more employees. Of course, they're very important. They also need contractors and consultants too. They do. This is why they're still being hired. Don't let anyone make you believe that's not true. Forget the money bit and all that kind of stuff there, because there are many consultants and contractors not even making that much money. And sometimes they don't have to. It's just the focus on the autonomy bit and who they're working with and all that kind of stuff there. Sometimes it's just focused on that. But you probably do have the competencies and skills to do what you're doing. Remember, if you want to understand if you are ready enough or you want some sort of indication, I've got the consultant readiness assessment that you can take via the link below in the description. And it'll take about 5 minutes for you to do, and it'll give you some results. Stay on the results page. I'm still working out the logistics around it, but it should give you a good idea in terms of what your different sort of like readiness level looks like. If you are interested in videos centered around portfolio careers, contracting, consulting, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.